The more digitalization is advancing in malting and brewing, the more important it becomes to protect the system against unauthorized access. A reasonable balance between effort, complexity and security preserves the practicality of the system. Product security is ensured by an effective password concept with hardware-coded protection, by using the new S7 1500 and by regular system updates. The right level of cybersecurity also has a lot to do with the complexity of the login process and user administration. This is exactly where the connection of an RFID reader to Braumat with the help of the PM add-on PM Logon comes into play. The registration of the currently responsible brewer or master brewer is done simply by means of a chip card and a company ID card. My colleague Robert Hallweg will now show you what this actually looks like on the Braumat system. Thanks, Jürgen. Instead of entering username and password manually, we now want to realize a login with RFID badges. This makes the registration process faster, and we can ensure that a user is only logged onto the system as long as he is at his workstation. For this purpose, we have the RFID reader 1060R and various RFID cards. Each of these cards has a fixed value stored for unique identification. This so-called UID can be read by the reader. The Braumat system and the PM Logon software are already installed on our test system. Let us now take a look at the configuration of PM Logon. Here, we will first configure our RFID reader. To do this, I select it from the list. With the button Connect, I can establish the connection to the reader. The UID of the card is recognized and displayed. So the connection to the reader works. We mark the reader as standard device. The users that are available for login can either be provided by an Active Directory or by the user administration of the local computer. In our case, we use the local user administration. Now we can take a closer look at the user administration in the PM Logon. At the beginning, the list shows all users of the local computer. To assign a user to an RFID card, I select the user and press Assign UID. The reader is connected. I hold the corresponding badge in front of it. The UID of the badge is recognized, and I can enter a password for the user. I can repeat this process for any number of users. Now we have completed the basic configuration in PM Logon. To use the authentication on a local workstation, I will next configure the PM Logon runtime. Again, I select the reader and select the local user administration as default. Furthermore, I activate under Logon Provider Braumat C-Store as target system. There are several options how PM Logon can perform the authentication in the Braumat system. We want to authenticate ourselves completely with our ID card, i.e. with username and password. Furthermore, we can configure what should happen when the card leaves the reader. One scenario would be the user logs in by placing the card and is automatically logged out after a certain period of inactivity. Another scenario is the one mentioned at the beginning, where the user remains logged in only as long as the card is on the reader. We set this behavior with the option Provide empty username. Then we can close the runtime configuration and start the runtime. The runtime is running and configured. Now let's have a look at the necessary project planning in the Braumat system. We open the Braumat user administration via the Application Center. Here we create our user and define it as a Windows user. As a result, we cannot set a password. This is done as usual via the Windows User Administration. We only have to assign a permission level. The level 1 to 255 gives us administrator rights. Furthermore, we have the possibility to set an automatic log off after a defined time of inactivity. That's it already. Now we can log on to our Braumat system with our ID card. In practice, the operator does not hold the card in front of the reader the whole time, of course, so I have already installed a card holder here. Now I log in and remain logged in as long as my card is in the RFID reader. Now it is also possible to switch a value by hand. When I remove the card, it is no longer possible to switch the valve by hand. It's that easy to set up an RFID reader in the Braumat system.
Siemens. Ingenuity for life.